During a House Oversight Committee about immigration, Boebert claims that abortion is the reason for declining birth rates in the United States, which it is not the reason for lower birth rates. The main reason for lower birth rates is because it's becoming more and more unaffordable to have kids, as well as there's a lot of people that just don't want kids. With the stagnant wages, why would people want to have kids when they can barely afford to cover their own bills?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The failure in our immigration system is a wide open southern border. There are folks who are waiting in a so-called line. As Mr. Beyer said, most countries do not have a line. They have a lottery, and they're banned from even...
Who cares what other nations have? We're the United States. We're not every other nation. The United States is a nation based upon immigrants. We should allow anybody and everybody who wants to come into the United States to come into the United States and make the process of becoming an American citizen easier.
been applying. We have the most generous system in the world for bringing in legal immigrants into our country.
Not as generous as you may want to pretend it is. It's still pretty hard to become a naturalized citizen, sometimes taking 2 or 3 decades, sometimes more than that.
Country, and it's so interesting, fascinating to hear my colleagues on the other side of the aisle debate this and counter every other argument that they have in their policies. They're saying they want economic growth, and the only way to get so is through indentured servitude, is through putting...
What what is she talking about? Indentured servitude? What, having um uh migrants become American citizens makes them indentured servitude or indentured servants?
moms and their children in the hands of cartel who, Mr. Homan, you have said that it's the cartel who have operational control at our southern border. Is that not correct, sir?
Well, we can change that by making it easier to get into the United States. These cartels are making money for people trying to get into the United States because it's hard for people to just easily get into the United States. Open up more ports into the US, and you will see the human trafficking by cartels uh, virtually become zero.
They absolutely do.
So we are going to risk putting lives in the hands of the cartel to bolster our economy. My colleague just asked if our birth rate was declining here in America, and the answer was yes. Well, of course it is. We have nearly 1 million abortions in our country a year, over 60 million abortions since this has been illegal. And if that's an...
Okay, 1 million abortions a year out of 300 million Americans, 400 million Americans in the United States. That is basically nothing.
issue, well, then we need to address that. If we want an incline in our birth rate, well, let's look at our own country first, rather than putting folks in the hands of the cartel and putting their lives in danger so they...
This is hilarious how she's trying to combine immigration with abortion. This just doesn't make any sense.
can do, as my colleagues on the other side of the aisle say, pick our fruit, pick our crops. Aren't the folks who are coming here to seek the American dream deserving of the American dream? Or are they only deserving to clean our toilets, fold our beds in our hotels, the sheets, and pick our crops? I think the...
This is interesting that Boebert is advocating for uh, migrants and stuff to be able to do more than just like the most basic of shitty jobs in the United States, being that she's a weirdo right-winger.
The American dream is worth much more than that, and that's why we are the most generous nation in the world when it comes to legal immigration, accepting nearly 1 million legal immigrants each year. Now, Mr. Homan, as someone who oversaw a significant downturn in illegal border crossings under the Trump administration, what do you believe has been the biggest driver in skyrocketing increase of illegal immigration through our southern border under the Biden administration?
It's probably because there's like economic turmoil in the nations that these people are leaving, or extreme amount of violence, and these people seeking a safer place to go to where they can live and work.
The Biden administration's policies, catch and release. They know they cross the border illegally, they'll be processed in record time because the administration keeps sending more resources to the border, not to secure the border, but to process.
Yeah, Biden isn't sending more and more resources to the border. That's a big old lie right there. He's enacting a lot of policies that Trump wanted to enact, like requiring asylum seekers to request asylum in the nations that they travel through first. And if they don't do that, they're not allowed into the United States or to request asylum.
Process and release. As long as they know they can cross the border, be released, get flown or transported to the city of their choice at taxpayers' dime, get lodging, health.
Okay, you talked about like what Florida and the Florida governor or Texas governor transporting migrants to other places. That's not the choosing of the migrants. That's because Abbott and DeSantis want to do that.
Healthcare, 3 squares a day, they're going to keep coming because there's no consequence.
And what's the issue with giving people who need help food? It's like, it's crazy to think people don't deserve to eat. No matter who you are, you deserve to eat.
Thank you, Mr. Homan. Now, in Colorado, we've seen fentanyl deaths absolutely explode, and thousands of illegal aliens shipped into my state of Colorado. How do you think that the American family has been most impacted by the failure of this administration to secure a border and keep this, what I could consider a weapon of mass destruction, out of our country?
I mean, you can blame immigrants for fentanyl all you want. This is a problem of the United States itself. Uh, I mean, we went from people being prescribed massive amounts of opioids to them then being kicked off of opioids to where they're forced to do heroin. And now that there is something stronger and cheaper, people are going to gravitate towards that. So this is the fault of the government, not illegal immigrants.
It's a poison, and there's a couple of things. First of all, I haven't seen this administration hold China accountable for providing the precursors that the cartels in Mexico used to create this poison. I haven't seen any accountability of this administration holding Mexico accountable for not taking on the criminal cartels.
Oh yeah, the government loves to take on the criminal cartels by aiding some of them so that they can get information on other cartels.
The fact is, about 300 children are going to die every day, hundreds every day, and this is not going to stop with open border, because despite.
Yeah, this is the only time that like Republicans care about kids dying, when they can blame immigrants for the death of kids. I mean, right-wingers are all about denying kids the ability to get food either via food stamps or various food programs and like that. They don't care if American kids starve to death.
Right, what people have said here today. I've done this for 34 years. I've investigated criminal cartels. Much of the fentanyl is coming through the port of entry. I don't argue that. Most of the fentanyl is seized at a port of entry, because that's where they stop every vehicle. But between the port of entries and maritime from the Coast Guard, you can't make a statement saying most of the fentanyl comes through the port of entry when you don't know what the hell is coming between the port of entry, especially when most Border Patrol agents are no longer on patrol. I testified earlier, I've been to several sectors in the past year.
Okay, how much fentanyl is coming through the U.S. border? Is it, or I mean, how can we actually quantify the amount of drugs coming through the U.S. borders and who is bringing it? Because you can blame immigrants all you want, but without any evidence, it's just you being racist.
Where every single Border Patrol agent was pulled off the line for days. Hundreds of miles of border. The criminal cartel is going to use the route of least resistance, and that's where there is a law enforcement officer.
Yes, Mr. Homan, that's a great point because we do hear about the ports of entry a lot in this committee room, but we don't know.
I mean, if we make more ports of entry and make them safer for migrants to cross through in the United States, we would have less cartel trying to traffic people into the United States or supposedly traffic drugs into the United States.
Know what's coming across the border where it is wide open and there are not Border Patrol agents. And I love that you also highlighted the fact that the funding that's going to our border is simply to process more illegal aliens, not to secure our border. Now, going back to Colorado.
I mean, if they're being processed, then that means they're in the process of becoming American citizens, or hopefully in the process of having their request for asylum granted.
Jose Guadalupe Manivar Alas, an illegal alien, forgive my pronunciation of his name, but he's an illegal alien who has 4 previous convictions in Colorado for alcohol-related driving offenses and was previously deported 4 times and recently crashed his vehicle and killed a 47-year-old woman, Melissa Powell, and her 16-year-old son. The Biden regime absolutely has blood on its hands for their failure to secure.
Biden regime, um, how is this the fault of the Biden administration? They never explain how crimes committed by immigrants is like the fault of the current administration. When it was the Trump administration, they never talked about anything like this.
Secure our border and actually hold this criminal alien accountable and is resulting in the deaths of women and children here. There's many excuses that we hear from the other side, and unfortunately, one of them is to bolster our economy and that our Social Security system is going to decline. Mr. Beyer, you said that we have to raise taxes on the